This is part of a series of video tutorials about some historically difficult concepts in macroeconomics. This tutorial is going to talk about open market operations as part of monetary policy. So, open market operations are one of the tools of the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank of the US, which does monetary policy in the US. So, open market operations are the tool that they use most frequently to change the money supply, impacting the interest rate, and thereby affecting aggregate supply and demand. So, with expansionary monetary policy, as it probably kind of sounds like, the goal of expansionary monetary policy is to increase the money supply and to kind of rev up the economy to get it going. So, the goal or the result of expansionary monetary policy is to increase the money supply. And when we increase the money supply, we lower the interest rate. The way the Fed increases the money supply is by buying bonds or stocks from banks and giving them money in exchange for those. So with expansionary monetary policy, the Fed buys bonds from banks. When the Fed buys those bonds, they give the banks money in return. The banks then take that money and use it to make loans or put it in their reserves, those sorts of things. So effectively, we've increased the money supply. Like I said, when we increase the money supply, the interest rate goes down. Just as a review, we said that the components of aggregate demand are the same as GDP. So that's consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. When we have a lower interest rate, which is the result of expansionary monetary policy, both consumption and investment increase. The reason consumption increases is kind of twofold. The first one is with lower interest rates, you can take out more loans and you can spend more money. Or with lower interest rates, you basically have two choices with your money. You can either save it in a bank or you can spend it. So a lower interest rate means that you're not getting as high a return on your money, so you're probably saving less money and spending more. So a lower interest rate leads to higher consumption. For the same reasons, a lower interest rate also leads to higher investment, because if you're a business who's trying to spend money on a new factory or new capital, new equipment, things like that, a lower interest rate means that you can take out more loans or take out a larger loan and not have to pay back as much interest. So the result of higher consumption and investment is that our aggregate demand shifts out, increases. So our aggregate demand graph has price on this axis and quantity or output on this axis. So the immediate effect of expansionary monetary policy is that the price level goes up and our output also increases. So in less economic kind of jargon terms, the overall effect of expansionary monetary policy is to increase the price level and to also increase our output, or how much stuff we're producing. So expansionary monetary policy kind of revs up the economy, gets it producing more. And then contractionary monetary policy is kind of the reverse. If the goal of expansionary monetary policy is to get the economy going, to kind of get us maybe out of a recession, contractionary policy is the opposite. If inflation is too high, if the economy is going too quickly, we kind of want to rein in our growth. That's when we engage in contractionary monetary policy. So contractionary is when we try to decrease the money supply, and from doing that, we raise the interest rate. So to decrease the money supply, the Fed sells bonds or treasury securities to banks. The banks in exchange for those bonds, the banks give the Fed money. So they have to take money out of their reserves and their vaults for that, and the money supply decreases. So when the money supply decreases, our interest rate goes up. We said again that the components of aggregate demand are consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. This higher interest rate has an impact on both consumption spending and investment spending. It decreases both of them, so the aggregate demand curve shifts backwards. So we move from this equilibrium to this one. So we have both the price level going down, and we have quantity or output decreasing. So the overall goals or the overall results of contractionary monetary policy are to decrease the price level and also to decrease the amount of output that we're producing. So the goal of expansionary monetary policy to kind of rev up the economy, increase our output and our growth. The goal of contractionary monetary policy to rein in spending and growth and kind of slow the economy down. So that's an overview of monetary policy and open market operations.